I was getting there, Ruth. The Honourable Member, Dr David Clark.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Thank you. I've been called a lot worse. I want to begin by putting on record that Peseta Sam Lotuinga spoke earlier in the debate, and I would like to put on record from the outset that I do agree with the bulk of the member's statements. This has been said already, of course, today. There are some I struggle to agree with, and I do struggle a little with the way in which he's caricatured the debate, characterised the debate that has been had. I know that he will be struggling with the outcome that his party has come to on this, because he is someone that believes in the value of markets. But there he is. He stands up and he says what he thinks needs to be said in this debate. But as with the debate on housing, and perhaps actually more pertinently in respect to the debate on housing, as my colleague Phil Twyford, I think, has quipped, no matter how much lipstick you put on a pig, it is still a pig. And that is certainly true with the government's housing policy. But we're here to, of course, discuss the Parallel Importing of Films Amendment Bill that has been reported back to the House. And I sat on the Select Committee that debated this bill, and we found that there were arguments in favour and against extending the protection offered to cinemas around the country. And we have, as a committee, recommended in the end to continue with some level of protection, albeit a very clearly signalled final episode of protection and a shorter episode of protection. So the bill reduces the delay for parallel importing a film from 9 months to 5 months after a film's international release date. Labor's qualified support for the 5-month delay rests on the impact on provincial and rural cinemas that have less capacity to show multiple high-grossing movies simultaneously and less flexibility and ability to cut costs to remain competitive. It's fair to say that there are also other cinemas, perhaps art house cinemas and the like, in medium-sized towns that are vulnerable here. And I guess I am a little surprised at the stance the Green Party has taken, knowing that the stance they're taking, if it was to be successfully pushed through the House, would mean the loss of about 160 jobs, we're told. It would mean the loss of small community facilities. It would probably mean the wholesale destruction of art house cinemas in New Zealand. And it seems a peculiar stance to take from the Greens, and it is sad to hear that they are not concerned to look after the educational opportunities that are in cinema, that they don't value the community that builds around small rural and small town cinema, and that they don't value the jobs that are in the industry. We think that this decision here to have essentially a compromise, a shorter period of time of protection leading over to a period where the industry must adapt, is the sensible solution, the solution that takes the middle path, that protects the industry for a period of time while the adjustment is made, not like a very hard decision that means jobs are laid off without a transition period, without the ability to make adjustments. It's showing concern for the industry, for the community facilities and for the jobs. And so that's the point we've reached in our deliberations. It was a challenging deliberation. I think the discussions in the Select Committee were good ones, were fulsome ones, and really went across all of the issues. So it's a little sad for me to hear that the Green Party do not seem to value those kinds of community facilities. They don't seem to value the jobs or the cinema that is shown in those smaller communities. However, that is where they stand, and they've reached their decision, and I'm sure that wasn't easy for them to reach either. But I do feel it needs to be put on record that that was a different decision than most reached. It's also interesting when we think back that this bill was introduced under urgency. It was introduced under urgency in this House, and we spent a lot of time debating why that might be after it languished on the order paper for an inordinately long period of time, and the kind of relaxed approach this government's taking to it now betrays that perhaps it wasn't quite as urgent as it was first projected to be. The speeches have been very short, very short, and they contain very little detail or explanation of why this is such an urgent matter. In fact, they seem quite dismissive of the prospect of debating the bill. And that is a little surprising, but I think it points to the kind of process that this government is running through. It's trying to rush things through under urgency as it tries to catch up on the lost time from bad organisation in this House. I think that's clear. This bill will expire, Mr. Speaker, on the 31st of October 2016, with the effect that importing of a film first made available to the public after that date would be allowed immediately on the film being made publicly available. So this is a time-limited bill. It's introducing a time-limited measure, and at that point in time, we are expecting that cinemas will have adapted. They will have made the necessary adjustments. They will have switched to digital technology if that's what's required. And also we're recognising the changing patterns of consumption amongst ordinary Kiwis who are increasingly looking at other electronic means of gathering these films, this entertainment, and the educational material that goes with it. And we will recognise that Kiwis and others around the world will find ways of sharing a community experience as they adapt to online means of sharing and viewing this material. These forums are developing all the time, online forums where there is a sense of commonly shared experience. But not all New Zealanders are there yet. And so in some ways that is why this bill makes a lot of sense, to continue to preserve that community experience for an interim period of time while the industry adapts, while New Zealanders adapt to the rapidly changing technology, and that preserves the opportunity to have those community experiences. In our previous reading, I noticed in many speeches Mr. Fafoi's entrancement with Smurfs and the Magic Flute came into discussion. That was the first movie he ever went to see. We discussed Star Wars and other movies, but the Smurfs came up again in a speech by a member sitting opposite me here. I think it was Mr. McIndoe, if I remember correctly. He raised the issue of Smurfs 2 being released this month and the effect, and some of us across this side would have liked to have enabled some of the other characters in the House to highlight perhaps the levity with which this bill has been debated at times. I think some of the frivolousness in the speeches from the opposition does reflect the fact that for them this isn't really an urgent bill. It is a bill that reflects their inability to organise their time in the House, the fact that it's come through late, that it's now been rushed through after languishing on the order paper, that it is a bill that they're not so attached to one way or another. It's filling space, it's using parliamentary time, but it does ultimately achieve something that we find difficult to oppose, which is a transitional measure. So, to sum up, the Labour Party will be supporting this bill because we believe it provides an appropriate interim measure whilst the industry and community adjusts to the changing nature of public entertainment and education in the film sector. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Dr. Clark. I call the honourable member, Dr. Young Jang. Ni hao.